Have you ever wondered what would happen if gravity suddenly stopped working? Not forever, not even for a minute. Just 5 seconds. It might sound harmless. 5 seconds is nothing, right? But if Earth's gravity disappeared, the consequences would be absolutely chaotic. People would float, cars would fly, oceans would rise into the sky. And when gravity suddenly returned, things would get much worse. So today, we're going to explore a fascinating question. What if Earth lost gravity for 5 seconds? Let's break it down step by step. Before we imagine gravity disappearing, we need to understand what gravity actually does, okay? Gravity is the invisible force that pulls everything toward Earth. It's the reason you stay on the ground. The oceans stay in place, the atmosphere surrounds our planet, and buildings stay attached to the surface. Every object on Earth is constantly being pulled downward at 9.8 meters per second squared. The force keeps the entire world stable. But imagine that force suddenly turns off. For 5 seconds, everything on Earth would behave as if it were in outer space. The moment gravity disappears, something strange would happen. Everything would instantly stop being pulled down. But objects wouldn't just freeze in place. Because of inertia, anything already moving would keep moving. People standing still might slowly drift upward. Anyone jumping would suddenly launch higher. The real chaos would begin with moving objects. Cars driving on highways would suddenly lose their grip and begin drifting upward and forward. Airplanes already flying would continue for the moment. But helicopters, birds, and drones would suddenly feel weightless, okay? And that's only the first second. Gravity also holds the entire atmosphere around the planet. Without gravity, the air itself would begin drifting away from the Earth's surface. The air pressure around us would suddenly drop. Breathing might become harder. Wind patterns would become chaotic. Dust and smoke would start floating upward. Even clouds would begin to expand and lift. But the most dramatic effect would happen to something much bigger. The oceans. If gravity vanished, the oceans wouldn't stay flat. Water would begin to bulge upward, okay? Massive blobs of water would start floating above the planet. Near coastlines, giant walls of water would begin rising. Ships would lift off the ocean, okay? Fish would be floating through open water spheres. Imagine trillions of tons of water slowly rising into the sky. Remember, gravity is only gone for 5 seconds, and then everything must fall. 5 seconds later, gravity switches back on. People who drifted several meters into the air would slam back to the ground. Cars would crash back onto roads. Objects would rain down everywhere, but the biggest disaster would come from the oceans. Those massive floating water masses would collapse back. This could create gigantic waves and tsunamis. Coastal cities would face catastrophic flooding. The atmosphere that expanded upward would compress back down rapidly. This could trigger massive storms and shock waves, but the destruction wouldn't stop there. The Earth rotates at about 1,670 kilometers per hour. Without gravity, objects would continue moving in straight lines while the Earth rotated beneath them. When gravity returned, many objects wouldn't land where they started. Some could crash into buildings. Others could land hundreds of meters away. Even mountains could experience rock slides as loose material lifted and fell back down. 5 seconds is more than enough time for serious chaos. Would humanity survive? Probably. 5 seconds is short enough that the atmosphere wouldn't escape completely and the planet wouldn't break apart, but the damage could still be enormous. Cities would suffer structural damage. Transportation systems would collapse. Life on Earth would be forever changed. Gravity is something we almost never think about. It quietly keeps our entire world together. The ground beneath your feet and the air you breathe, all of it exists because gravity never takes a break, okay? And hopefully it never will. But if it ever did, our planet would never forget it.